Money in the Bank has produced a number of glorious winners that have made their ascent to the main event scene, and they have also made a lot of stinkers, especially in this past decade. And would you look at that? We are going to be going over the past 10 years for every single winner of the Money in the Bank contract from 2014 all the way up to 2023. And deciding who should have won each and every single match. That being said, there's going to be a select few where I would not change the winner, and I feel like WWE chose the right person to win. But hey, before we get into that, if you like wrestling content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, keep your way out on the Twitch in the description down below, because you will be watching Money in the Bank live this weekend. And yo, let's get into the video. To start us off, 2014 itself, and the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view that happened since I became a hardcore fan of professional wrestling. And you know what? We aren't changing a thing. Seth Rollins was the the correct one to win the briefcase, and lo and behold, he would go on to have the most iconic, the greatest, the best Money in the Bank cash-in of all time. The heist of the century back in 2015 when he cashed in on Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And not to mention, this man also was one of the last people to have a proper run with the briefcase before even cashing it in. This man was one of the proper examples of how to have your Money in the Bank holder effectively get built up. The briefcase is supposed to turn a mid-carder or a person that's kind of struggling to make his way or name in the main event and further emphasize him or her. This man was getting wins left and right. This man was being shown to be either competent or at the very least smart. And on top of that, hey, he had the authority at his back pocket with J&J Security. This man wasn't one of these Money in the Bank winners that would start losing over and over again, like your Dolph Ziggler, for example, that quite frankly didn't exactly feel like they were getting elevated up until they eventually won the title itself. So we aren't changing Seth Rollins. 2015, however, I would go with Adrian Neville, the man nowadays known as Pac. I would have preferred to have Neville win the briefcase over the likes of, I would have Neville win over Sheamus, due to the fact that, hey, if we're being real, this is around the time that Roman Reigns was not at all loved, and Sheamus was so boring and dull, at the very least in the eyes of the fans at the time. I'm not going to play some hindsight. I'm not going to play some sort of, oh, well, he was good nowadays, and you know what, he was good back then. No. A lot of the fans, including myself, was not feeling Sheamus in the slightest. And the fact that he was able to get 2015 Roman Reigns cheered is a testament to how much people were not really vibing with Sheamus. Not as a heel, but God. Then they put him in the Double League of Nations not long after that. Actually, you know what? No! He was in the League of Nations around the end of his title reign, which, mind you, was short as all hell. One of the things I just said about Seth Rollins and the Money in the Bank should do is make new main event stars. And quite frankly, Pac, FKA Neville should have been the one to win that briefcase. You would have made a new star, and on top of that, you can't lie. If you're watching WWE back when Neville debuted, you almost lost your mind when you thought Seth lost the world title to Neville. Though I suppose this does also leave the issue that people would go and cheer Neville over Roman Reigns. But here's the fix. Turn one of them heel. Neville has it in him to be an amazing heel, and while it did take us like a year or so, I believe, around 2016 for us to find that out, and even then, hey, newsflash, you could hold on to the briefcase longer. I still would have been more open to this as compared to Sheamus. I would have been more open to the idea if Roman Reigns would have turned heel back then, although at the same time, if I'm being honest, perfect time to have Roman Reigns turn heel would have been when he beat The Undertaker, which I may get into that in the coming weeks leading up to SummerSlam. But you know what? I'll save that for another video. Fox should have won. Point blank, period. However, that being said, 2016, I had not changed anything. Dean Ambrose was the one to win it. And probably, you know what? I'll say this. He had the best same night cash-in in the history of WWE. I wasn't exactly feeling any other same night cash in, nowhere near as much as this. Not to mention, as WWE would like to remind you, at least before Dean left WWE, there's a lot of wrestling Twitter would love to remind you. Did you know? You already know the fact. And if you don't know, every single member of the Shield was the world champion thanks to Dean Ambrose winning the briefcase. Seth took the world title off of Roman and lost it to Dean Ambrose, which is a little bit of poetic justice considering that the year prior, Dean Ambrose lost the world title match to Seth Rollins. So what comes around goes around. Funny how the world works. Keep the title on Dean. Have him lose it to AJ Styles. And while it could have been better, hey, again, we got all members of the Shield being world champion in one night. And on top of that, that would have been the only world title that Dean Ambrose would hold in the WWE, at least for now. Keeping Carmella, although I would change one thing. Don't have James Ellsworth win it for her. It's the first women's Money in the Bank match. Why is a man winning it? But you know what? I will change from 2017 and in full. I would have had AJ Styles win the Money in the Bank contract instead of Baron Corbin. And you know why I say this? Let me just spell it out for you. He was the next world champion anyways. You would have at the very least been able to have a reason as for why AJ threw hands with Jinder Mahal in a random episode of SmackDown, leading into AJ versus Lesnar at that year's Survivor Series. You could deprive us from that god-awful Jinder Mahal wins against Baron Corbin. That whole situation. AJ wouldn't have won the title anyways. You can go ahead and have a briefcase, have one less failed cash-in. And on top of that, you can't tell me, come here, get closer. You can't tell me that AJ wouldn't have had a good Money in the Bank run. You could not tell me. You could not, in any stretch of the imagination, tell me that he would not have had an enjoyable time as Mr. Money in the Bank. Keeping Alexa Bliss as the winner of the Money in the Bank contract in 2018, but I'm changing the men's side again to Samoa Joe. Would have been a better choice instead of Braun Strowman. Also, I did remember, I didn't add the caveat that I had to have the person that won the briefcase end up in the same exact situation that the actual briefcase winner won. So you know what? In this case scenario, I would have had Samoa Joe go on ahead whenever Roman would have relinquished the title, have Samoa Joe take that title off of Brock Lesnar when he would inevitably win it at the Crown Jewel, I believe, pay-per-view. And oh yeah, let's have Samoa Joe be the monster he should have been. Keep Bayley as Miss Money in the Bank. She would go on and turn heel. And while she lost the title to Charlotte Flair, she'd win it back. And then, lo and behold, hey, she would go on to be the longest ever reigning SmackDown Women's Champion. So why would I change this? Newsflash, I ain't. On the men's side, however, I would change this. Hold up. You know what? On the men's side, I would change it to Mustafa Ali. I would have Mustafa not sit there and waste his time oogling at Brock Lesnar coming down. Just have him take the briefcase down, man. And it would have been an enjoyable storyline had Mustafa cashed in on Kofi Kingston. Considering that you could have written the storyline, hey, you stole my WrestleMania moment. You stole my spot in the Elimination Chamber. You know what? Cash in. It would have been a much more enjoyable way to have Kofi lose that title. You could have had a very personal storyline there, written in the fact that if it wasn't for Mustafa getting injured, you would not have gotten Kofi Mania. So who better to win that briefcase than Mustafa? Also, you wouldn't have had to deal with a 5-second championship match between between Kofi and Brock, which led to nothing. And the only thing notable of that championship reign was when he lost it to Drew McIntyre and when he got his head kicked in at the Rumble, which you could still eventually have, I guess, if you want to go down that route. But come 2020, I would keep Asuka as the winner, and for the men's side things, I would have changed it to AJ Styles. Have AJ win the briefcase, have him be the one to cash it on Drew McIntyre, and you know what? Have a triple threat match at WrestleMania, Bobby, Drew, and AJ, which you could also go ahead and point out the fact that these guys have all had their dances in TNA. And you could have had Bobby get his crowning moment in front of fans, man. 2021, give me Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan would have been a better choice in my personal opinion over Nikki ASH. And on top of that, you know what? A little bit of cheating here. I can go ahead and throw in the power of hindsight. Have her cash in on Charlotte. You can use that as a bit of a story bit with the rivalry nowadays of the fact that, hey, I beat Charlotte far earlier than you did. Top of that would have made her seem more legitimate as a main eventer over what Nikki ASH did, which she kind of floundered, and by the end of the year, she kind of became an afterthought, depressingly so. Men's side, however, we aren't touching this. We aren't touching this. Outside the booking, we aren't touching this. Keep Biggie as the Money in the Bank winner. 2022, keeping Liv Morgan. The year she actually did win it, keep her as the briefcase winner. But for the men's side, however, I would have given it to Seth freaking Rollins. And hear me out, Seth Rollins could go ahead, have his time as Mr. Money in the Bank. But then as time goes on and on and on, he points out, hey, how can I cash in on a champion that's never here? You know what? You could also go ahead and have him be like, hey, Roman, I challenge you on this episode of SmackDown. Says that's your show. Hey, I'm gonna challenge you at your show. Go ahead and have these two set up to square off, and Roman no shows. Seth can't get that match going. He can't cash it in. So they go ahead and find another solution and make the world title. Yes, it does also skip the whole world title tournament, which, you know what, you can have that world title tournament, except for the winner gets to take on Seth Rollins for the title, and that could be his first defense, which AJ could still win, and you could have those two face off each other. And to finish us off here, 2023, while it's still playing out, the sheer deflation I felt in Vibe when Damian Priest won, I was not feeling it. The briefcase run itself, I wasn't feeling it either. So you know what? Hey, argue with me. Down in the comments below, you can go ahead and argue with me peacefully. But give it to LA Knight. This man was riding a wave of momentum, a momentum not often seen. Go ahead and give him the briefcase. Build this man up in the world title scene. Give him big win after big win after big win, and let him eventually cash in. And you know what? I would like if he won this year, either him or Chad Gable. And I can even book how I would have them go ahead and cash in, although it won't matter because only one is going to win. Who knows? Maybe neither will win. But over on the women's side, I would not change Io Sky. She was the right one to win that briefcase, and lo and behold, it also led to her taking on Bayley at WrestleMania, which was an enjoyable match, and the best of Bayley's championship reign. So yeah, no changes here. And that is who I would have win every single Money in the Bank match of the past decade. Let me know who you have win each year's proverbial ticket to the main event scene, and whether or not you agree with my own takes. And don't forget, hey, like, comment, subscribe. Keep your boy on the Twitch because we got some wrestling over there, not to mention some live reactions to the Money in the Bank itself. And yeah, see ya.